I live in Montana. I'm 60 years old and a single gay man. Living in rural Montana and being raised in Iowa, I don't exactly fit the mold for where I live, if that makes sense. Online dating seems to be where it's at, and I also find great support online. I'm in a few groups specifically made for the LGBTQ plus community who live in rural areas. I've met a bunch of great men and women who share stories, and we are all friends online, and some of us get together for monthly video chats. Now, when I say I live in a rural area, my town has around 700 people, but I live outside of town, and my nearest store is a good 30-minute drive, provided the weather's good. I work from home remotely, and so my life is very isolating. Online friendships are my reach to the outside world, and it works for me as I have some social anxiety, so being able to turn off my friends when I need to take a break from the online camaraderie works perfectly for me. I wasn't looking for a partner, and I'd been single for almost 8 years. And sure, I've tried online dating in the past, but my lifestyle of living in a rural area and my isolating nature keeps possible suitors at bay. I was in a relationship for 15 years with my partner before he had passed from cancer. And since then, finding love really isn't a priority. I was online one night just browsing the support group I'm in. And keep in mind, I'm in several support groups, but this one in particular has about 3,000 members. It's a public forum and anyone can join it. I commented on a post done by one of our members. It was just a post about some current laws and changes happening, and a man named Mateo replied to me. He said he found my comment very smart and he was sorry for invading my privacy, but he wanted to tell me that he thought I was handsome in my profile picture and that my words were very smart. My profile picture is of me taken in winter clothes outside of a cafe in town. I was wearing my denim and fur jacket. Admittingly, I thought I looked like a real cowboy, but trust me, I'm far from it. I thanked him and he instantly sent me a message on Messenger. Again, he said his name was Mateo, to which I was a little confused. He said yes, and his last name is short for a longer Greek name, and that he was born and raised in Athens, Greece, but now lived in Miami. I checked out his profile picture, and he had 2 or 3 other pictures on his timeline. Everything else was blank, though, and I figured it was just set to private since we weren't friends, and I couldn't see anything else other than the pictures he had set to public. He told me he was 52 years old, he was an engineer, but getting ready to retire. He asked me what my job was and where I was from. I didn't give him the town name, but I told him I live in rural Montana, and I work in data analysis, and I work from home. He told me he often goes out on ships to analyze and solve engineering issues with underwater cables. I joked and told him I hated the water and beach, which is why I live in the mountains. He didn't really get my joke, but we went on to chat about our favorite hobbies, food, songs, and life out here can get quite boring, so chatting with someone new to me is always exciting. And he was handsome from what I could see of his pictures. He said he went to college in Greece and moved to the States after college to begin his work for the company he's still currently employed with. He said it was a drilling and underwater cable company. I told him I have no idea, I don't do underwater anything, and again the joke went over his head. He said he had a daughter, to which I asked him if he'd been married, or if he came out later in life, or did he adopt her. He told me he adopted his daughter from an orphanage in Ghana, to which I thought that was a beautiful story. He said she was 11 years old and was in boarding school in Florida while he was working. He told me he was leaving in 2 weeks for the Gulf Coast of Texas to help on a project, and would be gone for 2 months and then come back to Miami. When I asked him the specifics of his job, he would send me paragraph after paragraph describing his work. Honestly, I didn't read most of it, as it was long and I wasn't interested in learning about underwater cable wires. He did, however, send me a friend request, to which I accepted. A handful of family, some work colleagues, but life as I live it is in isolation, so nearly all of my online friends are people that I've never met in person. He sent me some more pictures of himself and a couple of his adopted daughter, Emily. He asked if I had kids, to which I told him no, and that I've lived most of my life out. I think that comment just went over his head. I admit there was some red flags early on, but I chalked it up to him being from Greece. Maybe he didn't get the humor or American slang so quickly. I wasn't really sure. We exchanged phone numbers and added each other on WhatsApp. He called me on voice chat one night, right before he was set to leave for his business trip to the Gulf Coast. He talked very quietly, and I expected his voice to match his photos, but it didn't. He spoke softly. It was very hard to hear him. The photos he sent were of a very tall, bronze-tan, muscular man who very much looked like a Greek god, and the man who called and talked to me was very soft and light-voiced. I could hardly understand him. I don't know how to quite explain it. It was like he was hiding calling me, which raised a flag of me thinking maybe he was a cheater. When we hung up, I asked him why he was talking so softly. He said he was intimidated by how handsome I was and thought I wouldn't like him. I told him he was being silly and we have a good friendship. He then told me he would like to be more than friends and asked what I thought about online dating. I told him I have no desire to live in Miami, so if we were ever to work out, he would need to get used to being in the long, cold winters of the mountains. He said he would sell his house and move here. I told him, slow down, we hardly know each other, but we could talk more. I tried to video chat him, but he suddenly became tired and needed to sleep. He was preparing to leave for his trip soon. I understood and I bid him a good night. We continued texting the next day, all the way up until he left for his business trip, and he said he would call me on video once he was on his ship. Sure enough, one night I received a phone call video chat. It looked like the man in the pictures that he had sent me, but the video was grainy, and he said due to the poor signal, he told me he was also low on iTunes cards and forgot to buy one before he left for his trip, and he couldn't video chat for very long. The video and his words were delayed and didn't match, and looking back, that was a red flag that I ignored. He asked if I could buy him a $100 iTunes card, and he would pay me back when he arrived home. It was to keep his phone going. I told him that I don't live anywhere near any stores, and he told me just to get one at a corner market. I had to explain that there are no corner markets here, but I would be going to town in a week, and I would think about getting one. He was upset with me and asked me why I just can't go get one now. I felt it rude, and I told him the situation of where I live. He seemed to understand and said he was very busy with work this coming week and to message him when I was able to get the iTunes card so he could save his phone time. I wasn't sure how they all worked, so when I went to town to get groceries, I talked to one of the clerks I knew. I explained the situation, and he advised me not to buy any cards. They don't add time to a phone, and a lot of scammers ask for them. I ended up not getting the card and going home. If he really wanted to be with me, he would not expect monetary items like gift cards. In the back of my mind, I kept thinking of what the store clerk had told me, and I kept my guard up. When I talked to him, I told him I wasn't able to get the card, and I don't feel that we know each other well enough to exchange gifts. He was upset, but he said no problem, and continued our normal conversation. Going forward, he never asked again for those cards. He called less and less, but kept citing that it was because he didn't have a card, so he could only text, and when I told him what the clerk said about the iTunes cards, he did a very long explanation of how the cards work for remote locations, and it's different than in the States, as he is on the ocean. Well, I still didn't buy him any card, but he kept up our online relationship, and he promised to come visit me and be with me. He said he'd been single for years and couldn't find anyone. Trust was a big issue with him, as it was with me. He said his daughter Emily was wanting him to meet someone special. He told me Emily's birthday was coming up soon, and he was so upset as he would miss it, and he was at work and couldn't even get her a gift. His bank account was not working, and he wouldn't be able to fix it till he got back onto dry land. He said he emails with Emily, and she wanted a Steam gift card for her birthday as she loves to play online video games. He said that she had begged her father for a $500 Steam gift card. I thought $500 was ridiculous for a child's birthday. She's supposed to be turning 12. I told him when I was 12 I got a bicycle, and that was a huge gift. He agreed, but he said that she had a hard life in the orphanage and he needed to show her a good life with nice gifts. He asked me if I would be able to buy the card and he would pay me back. He even told me that he said his daughter knows all about me. I was hesitant, but I guess the whole child's birthday pulled at my heart, and I had no plans to go to town, but I made a special trip to get this card for her birthday. He told me I could buy one online, but I'd rather get it in person, and I did have other things that I needed in town. He was a bit controlling, often asking where I was and wanted me to message him when I was done with work, and would often ask me if I'd met someone. He didn't understand my rural isolating life, I guess, and I felt obligated to please him and let him know where and what I was doing at all times. We continued our relationship, and he kept asking about the $500 Steam card. I ended up going to town, but I bought a $25 card instead. He told me to scratch the card and email it to his daughter and say it was a gift from both of us. I didn't tell him I only got a $25 card. I figured that was plenty for a child. I emailed Emily with the email he gave me and said the gift was from both of us and I was her daddy's friend. I then said it was a $25 gift card and please have a happy birthday. I then bid Mateo also a good night and went to sleep. The next morning I had several messages from him, yelling in text, asking if I was playing a game. How dare I be so cheap and think so cheaply of his daughter by not sending the $500 gift card and insulting her by sending $25. He told me to keep the card and $25 is nothing but beggar's money. I was floored at the messages. I had also noticed he unfriended and blocked me on social, and I couldn't see his profile or his messages, and I was unable to respond. I ended up emailing Emily and telling her what her father said and please keep the card, happy birthday, and goodbye. I received an email back from Emily who wrote suspiciously like he did, telling me I insulted her and her family with such a cheap gift. I was very hurt and upset and ended up not responding. It was a few months later when I saw Mateo's photos on another profile in our group. I warned the admin of the group and the profile was removed. Come to find out the photos were stolen from a Greek model and it wasn't even him. I've since learned more about online fraud and fraudsters who use people's photos and who ask for Steam cards, iTunes, and cash. While I wasn't absolutely heartbroken, I was sad to know that I was used and lied to. My good nature was taken advantage of and I no longer chat online to strangers, and also went through my friends list and eliminated people that I really didn't know or chat with. Be aware as kind people get taken advantage of online. We'd like to thank this gentleman for sharing his story. Scammers target everybody from all walks of life. Their one main goal is to get money and gift cards. If anyone demands you get a gift card for them, simply block them. If you'd like to share your story, you can drop us an email, scammingscammers@gmail.com. We can verify your story and we will narrate it for you into a video. Your story may help others keep safe and share your experience. Thanks for listening, and until next time.